So, and this is actually the blood vessels that you can see with the naked eye, because of course there's all those microscopic blood vessels that we can't see that are just as extensive, if not more numerous. This is from Body Worlds. And this is the vasculature of the brain. Again, blood vessels you can see with the naked eye. Here is a SEM, right, scanning electron micrograph of a blood vessel. And you can see the lumen with the red blood cells. And you can see that innermost layer here that lines the lumen. That's going to be number 1 on your outline. That's the tunica interna, also known as the tunica intima. And you could also call it endothelium, because endothelium is epithelial cells, one layer of epithelial cells that are inside a structure, right? So like endocardium is the one layer of epithelial cells inside the heart. Endothelium is happens to be in the blood vessel. In the larger blood vessels, like your aorta, for example, you would have a little bit of extra elastic tissue here, because it's under such great blood pressure that it can expand and recoil. Tunica media, your second layer, is the green, right? So we can see it's pretty thick. It's the thickest of them, and it's mainly smooth muscle. We'll see a picture of that in just a second. Some elastic and some collagen. And then number 3, the tunica externa, also known as the adventitia, is the yellow, right? So this one comes away from the blood vessel. This is going to be fibrous, connective tissue. It helps to just make the blood vessel more rigid and attach blood vessels to things around it. So what you're going to look at now is just a flow chart of how the arteries are categorized and how the veins are categorized and all that stuff. So we're also look at the comparison between an artery and a vein. So let's start with elastic arteries, right? Elastic arteries are the biggest ones in your body. The aorta is an elastic artery. The abdominal aorta, thoracic aorta, those are elastic arteries. So what we see here is a really thick wall. We see that all 3 layers are present, and really the aorta is the major elastic artery. And why is it elastic? Because it's under the greatest blood pressure, right? Because it's the blood in it is directly coming away from the heart's pushing it, and so it has to be this elastic. It expands under the blood pressure and then recoils again when it's relaxed. That, I have it written down, right, number 1. That expansion and recoil actually helps to push the blood. So your heart, yes, it pushes the blood through your body, but then as your blood vessels come in, right, expansion and then comes in again, that also helps to push the blood. I go on to say that the internal, when it's not expanded, the artery is contracted and has a pleated appearance on the inside. We'll take a look at that just a little bit here, but you notice that the wall, the lining on the inside has a little extra tissue, it's pleated. And that's because it has that capacity to expand. And so you need extra tissue there for the expansion. The next level down, one step smaller, is muscular arteries. So when the elastic artery branches, you get muscular. Muscular is named so because the tunica media, that middle muscle layer, is the thickest. And we're talking smooth muscle, right? So what's smooth muscle doing inside of your arteries? When they contract, what happens to the lumen? It's smaller, right? And when they dilate, right, when they relax, it dilates. So vasodilation, vasoconstriction, and this is to micromanage the flow to organs, right? So if you just ate, your blood might be diverted away from your muscles and from other organs to go to your digestive system so it can work to process your food. So this muscle layer is going to help to fine-tune and distribute blood to different places in your body. That's why they're also called distribution arteries. All right, then we have arterioles. So when you're learning the names of blood vessels, you're learning the names of muscular arteries pretty much for the most part. The arterioles are not named because there's so many and there's so little that it's just ridiculous to try and name them. Also, everybody in here probably has a different pattern of our arterioles because, it's kind of like chaos theory. Like the blood vessels will just grow where they grow, and so arterioles are very, very numerous. You can also see from the picture that arterioles are missing that tunica externa, that they're just the endothelium and the muscle. All right, so we're branching down to arterioles, and then our next step is capillaries. Okay? So the blood flows from the heart down to our smaller and smaller arteries, and then we get to capillaries. So let me flip to the capillary picture. So here are two kinds of capillaries. So coming into the notes, right? Capillaries are just the endothelium. So we lost two layers. Now we're just down to that middle, that inner layer. And with the endothelium, just FYI, whenever you have those endothelial cells, you also have a little slip of basal lamina or the basement membrane, like it's always there. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's look at number 3, which is continuous capillary versus fenestrated capillary. A continuous capillary is the most common in your body, and the cells just kind of join up together and form, you know, a continuous capillary. So basically, in contrast to a fenestrated one, this has regular pores in it. So there's these regular larger openings that accommodate the movement of larger molecules, okay? So the wall is so thin in capillaries, this one endothelium layer is thin enough that things diffuse out. So gases, carbon dioxide, oxygen diffuse through the membrane. Nutrient molecules, little waste molecules, they all diffuse. So capillaries are the area of diffusion. Things move through those membranes. If you want more things, bigger molecules to move through the capillary system, then you'll have these porous kinds, these fenestrated ones. This is not very common in the body. It's only in a few places. One place where you might imagine this to be is in the kidneys, because your kidneys are, you know, responsible for getting rid of all your wastes into the urine. And so you want really, really leaky capillaries in the kidneys, and that's where you have it. So when we talk about the urinary system in a few weeks, right, this will come back. Okay, so then let's look at capillary beds and capillary sphincters. So capillaries, so the interesting thing about your whole blood vessel network in your body is that they never end. There's never like a stop, like a blind end to a blood vessel. Everything's connected. So your arteries just become smaller arterioles, then they become smaller and smaller, then they form this network called a capillary bed. And this is where diffusion takes place. So you can see the color is changing from red to blue. The intermediate color that they use is purple, right? It's between red and blue. So whenever you see shades of purple, you know that oxygen content is in the middle, intermediate oxygen content. So we have active diffusion going on here. The blood flows into, blood vessels just become bigger, and those are called venules, right? They're going to carry the blood into larger veins, medium-sized veins, large veins, back to the heart. So this capillary bed system is where all the blood slows down, and you have diffusion occurring. And it's good that the blood slows down. Remember I talked about rouleaus, how the capillaries are so small and macroscopic that everything slows down. Instead of backup, it's like 4 lanes of traffic becomes 1 lane of traffic. So we have a slow circulation here. Within this capillary bed, there's another word called a capillary sphincter. So you notice that around a capillary, we have these smooth muscles, and they wrap, basically, you know, every once in a while you'll see these sphincter muscles, and they can just close off completely a capillary bed. And so when you're, if you're very, very cold, for example, and your tips of your fingers go pale, that's because you have a reaction, right? Your autonomic nervous system is saying, let's keep the blood underneath the surface of our body to keep warm, and so all these sphincters will contract and just cut off the blood supply. So you can micromanage blood flow in the body with these capillary sphincters. Okay? So let's go back. Let's go back and look at our veins. So those are our capillaries. And now if we follow our veins back up to the heart, right, we have these our smallest of veins are called venules. We can see that it's the endothelium and then adventitious. So no smooth muscle here is necessary because we're just collecting blood. And then we get to the medium-sized veins, right? And then you'll learn the names of some medium-sized veins. And then the large veins are just inferior vena cava, superior vena cava. Those are the large veins. So let's just, one more thing to talk about is your veins and venules and your arteries and arterioles. These are only transport. These are taking blood from point A to point B. Diffusion only occurs at the capillaries because the walls are thin enough. Here, we have 2 layers. That's too thick. We can't have any diffusion occur, all right? So the diffusion only occurs with the capillaries. Okay, so let's look at just a comparison of arteries versus veins. Just go through the checklist I have on the corner there. So overall, just looking at the cartoon, the thickness of the wall, like all 3 layers, which one looks like it has a thicker wall, arteries or veins? Arteries. Arteries, yes. So in terms of the thicker wall, this is definitely arteries have a thicker wall. Again, because they're under higher blood pressure, right? Their integrity of the wall has to be thicker and more robust and structurally sound because they're getting pushed against all the time. What about a larger lumen? Yes. So it turns out that most of your blood in your blood vessels are in veins. And they don't have direct blood pressure to move the blood through their vessels. So the more blood they have, they can create their own sort of pressure. So they have larger lumens. Tunica media. Who has a thicker tunica media? Yeah, but just in general, like comparing all your arteries, all your veins, yes, arteries. So arteries they're the ones that decide, right? Like George Bush, the decider, like which organ's going to get the blood. So their dilation and constriction is more important than veins. So they'll have a more robust, well-developed tunica media. Which one has the outer? So adventitia is the externa, the outside. Which one's externa? Yeah, externa is more developed in veins. And this is because they lack that media, a thick media, so they have their rigidity, their structural integrity come from the tunica externa. And then which one do you think is more elastic?
Arteries.
Yes, definitely. Right? They're under blood pressure, they have to expand and recoil. They're going to contain elastic fibers, they're going to be more elastic. And our last one, which I didn't get to yet, is valves. So it turns out that veins have valves. So let's look at those. Maybe you have never thought of this, but how does blood get from your foot back to your heart, right? When you're sleeping, when you're standing, walking around, how is that? You're moving against gravity back to your heart. So it turns out it's working on your muscles. So anytime you move your body, it can be just physical twisting or pushing or muscle contraction. Anytime you move, the veins, right, the overall wall is thinner. So they are more squishy. And so when you push on veins, the blood inside will get squished. And so veins have valves so that it can only squish in one direction, right? So you can only move the blood out towards the heart. So every time you move, the blood inside a vein is going to move, but it only moves up because it can't move back down. It has a valve. So the blood goes up past the valve opens. When it pulls back down because of gravity, it shuts, just like the heart valves. So you have these regular valves within your body, okay? So that's why like moving around is really good for circulation. Exercise is good for circulation. If you're in a long plane ride, you're sitting there for a long time, it's really good to get up and walk around, just to move your blood around. It's also a cause of swelling. There's 2 ways you can move fluid around your body. One is with veins, and the other one's with lymphatic vessels. And they both work the same way. They both work by your movement of your body, muscle contraction, and they both have valves to prevent backflow. So anytime you move around, it's good for your circulation and your lymphatic vessels, your lymph fluid to move around. That's also why if you don't move around for a long time, you swell, right? So if you're sitting on a plane, your ankles get swollen, it's because you're not moving that fluid back up. You're not contracting your muscles. So let's look at, I have a fun little video for you to find your valves. Before that, just know that varicose veins is a problem in your valves. So what will happen is the valve will be faulty and open and allow blood to go back down to the previous segment. And that segment gets overloaded with blood, right? It starts to balloon out and the walls weaken and becomes bulgy. And you can see it under the skin. So that is a valve thing. Varicose veins can be caused by many, many different things. Genetically, you might just have bad valves, like formed irregularly. Or you have extra fluid in your body, like you're pregnant, and you have a lot of more blood, a lot more fluid to move around, and so that kind of puts a lot of strain on your blood vessels, your veins. And also things like standing for a very long time. Like if your job is a security guard and you just have to stand there all day, every day, you're going to have a lot of pressure in this downward motion on your feet, and so you can get varicose veins that way. But this is just finding valves.